Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Biznology Digital Marketing webinar. We have an exciting webinar today because I'm joined by Ruth Stevens, who's going to be giving us some insight into the top trends in B2B marketing. For those who are new to our webinars, let me give you a bit of background. Our Biznology webinars are just half an hour. Our platform allows you to chat with other attendees through the chat tab. You can also tweet about our webinar with the hashtag #BizKnowWebinar. If anyone in our audience has questions, you can use the Q&A tab and I'll ask questions throughout the webinar. Can't get started without giving a shout out to our sponsors. Geras Corp is a full-service digital strategy firm that reaches deeper into the conversation than any other agency anywhere. E-marketing strategy, B2B consulting from Ruth Stevens with a special focus on sales lead generation. And Solo Segment, revenues trapped in your site search. Solo Segment's Site Search Inspector can help you set that revenue free. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am Mike Moran, founder of Biznology and a senior strategist at Conversion and Solo Segment. I'm the co-author of Search Engine Marketing Inc. and Outside In Marketing and the sole author of Do It Wrong Quickly. I'm a veteran of IBM, managing groups in IBM.com for 8 years and retiring from IBM in 2008 as a distinguished engineer. But that's enough about me. Today we're talking with Ruth Stevens. So first, thanks so much for being here today, Ruth.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to.
So Ruth, you have a great deal of expertise on B2B marketing. In addition to being a highly valued contributor of Biznology, you've written 75 articles for us over the years. You also consult on B2B marketing. You teach at NYU Stern and business schools in Hong Kong and Singapore. And Ruth didn't ask for this, but you are the co-author of my favorite book on B2B marketing about data-driven marketing. It is one of the best books on B2B marketing you will ever read because what it does is it teaches you how to use your own data to figure out what's succeeding and what's not and to figure out what to do. So Ruth, is there anything else the audience might want to know about your background on the subject? How did you get here?
Here meaning...
Where you are, this luminary in B2B marketing. You're it, Ruth. How did this happen?
Well, I learned almost everything I know from my years at IBM. And I'm just sorry that you and I didn't overlap there, Mike. I've treasured our friendship ever since.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic that both of us spent so much time there. So, so let's get into a few questions here. Please. The first one I have is I think one that people ask me a lot, and I don't think I have as good an answer as you will, which is how is B2B buying behavior changing, and is it changing faster than it has in the past?
Right, great. My favorite topic because these changes are really what's driving B2B marketing today. We are scrambling to respond to changes in the marketplace, and I see two big trends that are worth discussing. One is that the buying group, namely, sometimes it's called the buying circle or the buying center, whatever group of people within an account that come together to eventually make a purchase decision, that group is getting larger and more risk averse every year. And of course, it's larger in large enterprises, and it's larger when the purchase decision is a very high ticket. But overall, it's getting larger, and that means that we as marketers have to know who all the members are, have access to them, and insight into what are their agendas, what's driving their part in the purchase decision, so that we can influence them in our favor, obviously. Now, the other trend, of course, is nothing new, but is worth pointing out. And that is that instead of calling in their vendors and the salespeople that in the traditional buying process, buyers would rely on, these buyers are now researching online. So this means that marketers need to be online with information to help them solve their problem or find the solution they're looking for and become a trusted partner of theirs and insinuate ourselves, in effect, onto their radar and into their hearts, so that when they develop a short list, we're on it. And it means that you might say that salespeople have almost lost control of a large part of the traditional sales process. And that means marketers need to step in and use digital tools to try to identify who's in the market, who's researching, and how to influence them in our favor. So it means a larger role and a more complex role, and I think more exciting role for marketing.
That makes a ton of sense. Why do you think that the buying circle is getting bigger? And the first trend that you pointed out, why do you think those things are happening? And why are they getting more risk averse? Yeah, why? Yeah. But why? Why are they becoming more risk averse?
Who knows? I mean, companies are, calcifying. Wall Street is putting more pressure on them. I don't know. There's all kinds of theories we could come up with. But outside of the why, I can certainly talk about the what, which is that we need to respond. And another point I'll maybe bring up later, or maybe I'll just mention here, millennials are starting to enter the buying group. And they behave differently from the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. And so trying to influence them is a different animal from what we've been used to. So that's another factor we marketers need to consider.
And how are they different?
Well, I've got some data that suggests that the first place they look is not at a website the way we would all expect. We need our websites to be very informative and easy to use and have great search engines internally, right? But these days, the millennials go to social media first. Oh my goodness. This means that not only do we have to be active on social media, we have to be considering that in the early stages of the buying process, that's where they're doing their research. So we need to satisfy that research process on the part of millennials. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You mentioned site search a second ago. Is this an area that B2B marketers should be paying more attention to? It's one of the things I'm going to ask about based on my work with Solo Segment, but we see a lot of companies that kind of ignore their site search. It sounds like millennials might be ignoring it too, but for Gen Xers and baby boomers, is it an area that you see companies focusing on or should be focusing on?
Definitely should be. The reason I mentioned it is that I know it's an area of interest of yours, and I, as a B2B marketer, am really glad that someone is focused on this, because I'm not hearing it among the marketing community. I think, let's get some education going, or try to raise awareness, because and I know that if I'm at a website and I'm trying to understand what this prospective vendor can do for me, I need really intuitive navigation, number one, but I also need to be able to find exactly what I'm searching on. And if you force me to poke around too long, I'm going to be annoyed, and I'm probably going to leave. So great internal search is, I think, essential. And as I said, I'm not hearing a lot of B2B marketers focused on it. The only place I do see a focus is in the e-commerce world. So, for example, in B2B, one of the great e-commerce applications is for aftermarket parts and other catalog type items that have traditionally been internal search supported, and there's an awareness in that world. But for general information and product information and solution information, I don't think we have the awareness yet that's required. So go get them, Mike.
But it's funny because it seems like if the pellet is very close to the mouth, then it suddenly we figure out how to get the pellet, right? But as soon as you put it a little farther away, we kind of forget about it, right? Nobody would say marketing. Nobody somebody would say marketing isn't important unless you have e-commerce, right? And so it's kind of weird, but I appreciate that that's what you're seeing, because we actually see a lot of the same stuff too. So let's talk about some other technologies. What other new technologies are affecting marketers today? So we talked about site search. You mentioned millennials focused on social media, which is an area that I don't see as a strength for most B2B companies. So both of these two areas we just talked about are places where B2B has to step it up. Are there other new technologies that you see that are changing things?
Well, I do have some exciting stories to tell, especially on the data front. But let me just mention the general state of marketing technology and how exploding it has been over the last 5 years. Thankfully, Scott Brinker and his cohorts are tracking the number of point solutions out there, and there are more than 5,000, nearly 6,000 in his 2018 study. And I've been expecting a big shakeout as he keeps adding more to his list. But what has really interested me, well, first on the shakeout front, I'm not seeing the shakeout yet, so that's sort of a question mark. But what really interests me is that CMOs are being required today to be more tech savvy than ever, almost to the point where they need to be as smart about technology as their CIO counterparts. And I've even run into situations where the CMO was controlling a larger budget than the CIO of a firm. So this means that the kind of training, experience, and inclination that characterizes the CMO needs to be different today. And it may be contributing to the short lifespan that we see among CMOs, especially in large enterprise. But the stack is getting more complex. The number of point solutions that are coming along is frankly overwhelming. And I really applaud all of the marketing technologists who are trying to sort through that and set up a reasonable set of tools that are going to work for them. But what I'm also seeing in marketing, at least on the marketing automation side, like campaign automation, that really annoys me is that the tools, while they make us have some conveniences, sort of reminds me of your book title, Do It Wrong Quickly. But we're also unfortunately limited by these tools. For example, in the campaign automation world, the assumption has emerged that all outbound marketing communications will be through email. And the campaign automation tools are essentially email driven.
Right,
so,
right.
You know, or maybe there's some digital display. But for an effective, say, lead nurturing program, which is designed to qualify and stay in touch with a prospect until he or she is ready to see a salesperson, that nurturing process, if you rely 100% on email, you're going to annoy and offend your prospects. It needs to be much more sophisticated, much more thoughtful of how a real business person would communicate with another real business person without marketing automation. And it would never be a series of, you know, cold emails, cold in the sense of
right.
They sound canned versus written by a single individual to another individual. So my conclusion is that while marketing automation lets us do things faster, it also makes us stupid in some ways.
I agree. I think we voted for efficient over effective. You know, where we're so focused on, you know, reaching more, doing it cheaper, doing it faster, all that kind of stuff, right, that we've forgotten whether it actually works or not. We've just resigned ourselves to, well, it'll work as well as it can work with this much that we're willing to spend and do, right? And I totally agree with you that if we go back to putting effectiveness as the first thing, then we can be as efficient about it as we're able to. But guess what? The effectiveness is why we're there. It's making the revenue is why we're there, not saving the cost. I couldn't agree more.
Hear, hear.
Just want to remind everybody in the audience that you can ask your own question in the Q&A tab. And we have one that came in from Sharon. It says, what social media channels should B2B marketers focus on? I'm a SaaS software company. Should I be in Pinterest, Instagram? Most of my customers right now don't use these channels for business.
Yeah. Well, the way to begin is, of course, with LinkedIn. And we all know this, but really interesting new stories are coming out of Facebook today, even for really industrial type marketers. And I would say for software as a service, Facebook is a no-brainer. I hate that term, no-brainer, but I would say that if you're not on Facebook, you're missing an opportunity. And the same is true for Instagram. I personally am not an Instagram user myself, but I know almost everybody in my circle is, and they are also, a lot of them are business buyers. So a presence there, I think, is recommended, maybe starting in small steps. But to get started, you want to be on LinkedIn and Twitter, I would say, then Facebook, then Instagram, and then depending on maybe your brand image, maybe Pinterest. I am seeing some fun things happening on Pinterest in the B2B world, but it's pretty rare. I put that sort of at the bottom of the list. But if you have a youngster on the staff who really loves it, I would say empower that person.
Yeah, you can always test it, right? I mean, the thing that I found the most surprising the last few years is the rise of Facebook for B2B. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was with a company that makes scientific laboratory equipment. Like, and try and come up with something that you think would be less where you would think Facebook would work.
I know it.
Tried it, it's working really well. And so it's like, so test it, right? Just give it a shot, right? You don't have to make some kind of lifetime commitment, right? Just try some stuff, see if it works. And as you said before, Ruth, I said, if you have somebody on the staff who's interested in doing that, they have the ability to do that, let them go. The thing that I am wondering is if this actually ties back to your previous comment about how millennials are getting into the buying circle and doing it in social. And it could be that at least some of them are doing it on Facebook rather than doing it on places that we older folks might expect that they're doing it on. And so so I a lot of what you're saying.
There are a couple of other drivers, I think, that can help make the internal business case for Facebook. One is that, well, the most obvious one is Facebook's sheer size and global domination, and that most B2B marketers are operating in a global environment. Your scientific equipment guy is, I'm sure, selling around the world. It's just, the nature of B2B manufacturing and B2B services. But the other argument, I would say, is let's look at what's going on in trade shows, trade pubs, and the traditional trade media that used to drive our B2B industries. They're falling apart. Some of them have successfully transitioned to the web, but most of them are still struggling. And this is one of the drivers of content marketing in the enterprise. It's not the only driver. The other big driver is that customers need information from us to build that relationship and establish that trust. But the fact that the trade shows have gone away was illustrated to me in the case study that I wrote about in the book, the B2B Data-Driven Marketing, about a machine tools company that has built a Facebook presence of over 100,000 followers. These are engineers, and they're at the point that they have established such an authoritative voice in the machine tooling world that the engineering faculty at engineering schools are referring students to this Facebook page to keep up on new technologies and machine tooling.
Right.
And that's a role that the trade pubs used to fill, and they're not there anymore, or they're not as loud and influential as they used to.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, probably attributable to the rise of content marketing, where, I mean, what your example is a classic content marketing play where you're attracting potential customers for information, but then you're showing off your expertise, you're showing off that you really have your finger on the pulse of what's going on through exactly the story that you told in the book. So what else is happening in content? What else do you see as being kind of the changes coming along that affect content marketing and other ways of using content for B2B marketing?
Well, I think the funnest angle is interactivity and the kind of consumery approach that B2B marketers are beginning to take with their content. Interactivity meaning like adding ROI calculators and quizzes and surveys and other tools to promote engagement on the one hand, but also video has burst on the B2B scene in a way that I don't think any of us would have predicted, but now the evidence is clear. I'm seeing video in the form of like case file mystery stories in little video segments that farmers can follow to learn about or gain access to information about the latest fertilizers. I mean, really, to think that fertilizer manufacturers are using episodic video content to attract farmers is remarkable, and I think unleashes the whole creative juice that is traditionally, you know, stifled in the B2B world, which is all about give them the facts and, you know, be very specific and informative. And I think we have an opportunity now to be more playful and be more casual in our marketing communications.
Yeah, most companies would be worried if their content was fertilizer. So we got another question that came in for the audience, again from Sharon. Will Facebook's current bad publicity play a role in its future in B2B marketing?
Yeah, I don't know, Sharon. I think they, you know, their crisis management capabilities are improving. Their power in the marketplace is so strong. I wouldn't write them off yet.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think they're just starting to realize how powerful they really are, and they were still acting like a younger and smaller company than they really are, and they can't get away with some of the things because they look like a bully now. And right. I think they didn't have the kind of self-awareness that I think the market is forcing them to develop in a rapid fashion. So let's see. I want to ask another question. You wrote a whole book on data-driven B2B marketing. So what kind of trends do you see in data use in B2B marketing since you wrote the book?
Yeah, the most exciting new news is about data sources. And I covered the newest at the time in the book, but there are new ones coming since then that I'm really excited about. The first one is so-called intent data, which is the concept that by looking at business behavior online, usually reported by publishers like PDF downloads or length of time on a page, and then tying that to the inference that if this guy is researching in this field, then maybe he's in buying mode and we should reach out and kick off a relationship. So there are several intent data providers out there today. Most of them, unfortunately, are limiting their solutions to tech marketing, but I think it'll spread to other industry sectors. And also intent data or data companies are starting to interpret intent more broadly. So I think there's a lot more to come. The other solution that I think many of your listeners may not have learned about, Mike, is the idea of taking your social media followers, like your Twitter followers or your LinkedIn company likes or whatever, and so-called reverse appending them back to a customer record, a prospect record or whatever, but expanding your database to include your Twitter followers is basically what I'm talking about here. Companies like Starista in San Antonio, Texas, have a service offering for this, and you basically hire them to reverse append your Twitter followers. That's all public data, so they can do it for you, and they might get a 15 to 20% match rate, but those are sort of free names that you can then add to your database and communicate with them through other channels. So I think it's a irresistibly appealing technique that costs next to nothing and makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot going on the data sources front. Now, on the data, the customer acquisition front, I'm really excited about the new tools available for lookalike marketing. Lookalike prospecting is something that's been going on in the world of catalog and mail order for decades, and is now making its way into digital marketing. And the concept is, let's do a profile of your top customers and then go find similar customers either at the account level or at the individual level and provide that as a lead list in effect, or a prospect list. It's being fueled today by artificial intelligence, or at least some people claim that. I think what's really going on is that the segmentation and model building is getting better and better, whether it's AI or not. It represents a real opportunity for companies to do smarter prospecting using the data that they already have on hand. So I'm pretty excited about that. And there's a plethora of providers whom you can choose among.
Ruth, I wish we could go more. I feel like we could go on all day, but we're out of time. Thanks so much to you for your great ideas, and thanks especially to our audience for joining us.
Thank you,
later
Sharon.
Later this week, we'll send you all a link to the recording of this webinar, and we also invite you to mark your calendars for our next Biznology webinar, Personal Branding, What Is It Really?, on September 18th at 11 a.m. You can sign up for it at biznology.com or through the email that you get. We hope to see everyone back here then. Bye, everybody.